From the center of the galaxy, this is ForceCenter, a show about Star Wars, pop culture, and the ultimate adventure, life itself. I'm Ken Napzok.
And I'm Jenn Landa.
And I'm Joseph Scrimshaw.
We got it. We nailed it. We're here to talk about episode 5 of the Skeleton Crew on a holiday week, which is something everyone's facing. And, you know, like we said before, we don't expect them to worry about podcasters, but this is a job. And I'm going to say right now, I'm in my Christmas pajamas. Like from here down.
Me too. Me too.
I have my special pajama pants. I always have pajama pants on when we record, but I have special holiday pajama pants on now.
All day ones indeed. We're also going to say that we're going to do our overall reactions, our favorite moments, and then Jen, you're gonna get back to a house full of family, and then Joseph and I will dive into the themes after.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Thank you for that. A house full of sick people, grandma who's still asleep. Even though I told her I got to record. Can you please wake up? Nope.
Lucky grandma.
Is she in the room? Is she in the room? She's
not in the room. Although my children were hiding behind this background before we were recording. So
that would be perfect for this episode, Jen. That would be perfect for this episode. Episode 5 of Skeleton Crew is called You Have a Lot to Learn About Pirates, directed by Jake Schreier. The writer is Mae Young Jo Weisner, raised in Missouri of Korean descent. She is rising up the ranks in Star Wars writers after one episode. We'll talk more about that. What we're looking at here is, can you ever really trust a pirate? Well, the parents of our young heroes begin to hatch their plan to help their kids. The crew of the now named Onyx Cinder head for Skull Ridge Mountain, and the secret lair of pirate legend Capt Tak Rennod is there. It's there deep beneath what is now a luxury spa on Lanupa that Captain Rennod hid the coordinates for At Attin. And can the crew find the hidden lair, get the coordinates, and get home safely, or will the newfound knowledge of At Attin's true value ignite the fires of greed in the mysterious heart of the man some call Dash Zentin? Let's dive in with our overall reactions. Joseph, a lot to talk about, a lot to discuss. Where are you at going into this?
Oh, this was delightful, a Christmas treat. I'd rather not have had to watch it on actual Christmas because my wife hasn't caught up, so we were having a lovely Christmas day, and I was like, now could you leave the room so I could watch the secret pirate show that you don't know the secrets of yet? And she's like, I'll just watch it with you. Like, no, it's too good. You're going to watch it with me from the beginning when we have time. So that little bit of Christmas venting schedule-wise out of the way, this was my favorite episode so far. I think this was the episode that totally paid off the premise of the show and everything that we've been building to. All of there I think nuances within the big themes that we'll talk about of this episode, but this episode I think was just drilling down on what the show is about. The idea of adventure as a metaphor for becoming an adult, and can you pass through the terror to get to the wonder? What is the value of stories? What do we actually learn from them? How much should kids actually have to be adults? And as you highlighted very well in your summary there, Ken, can adults or the adult world ever be trusted? We're looking at it from the eyes of kids. But again, the power of this is there's a sadness buried under all of the fun to me, because it is an examination not only of what it is to be an adult, what it is to be young and to have to pass that threshold and pass all these rights into adulthood, but it's also a look at the adult world and like, hey, wait. Does being an adult suck? Is it awful? There's this great tension that I'm feeling in the real world too, of like, Mr. Rogers and Sesame Street taught us of a certain age and a certain generation a list of values and ideas, and then you look around and go, hey, ain't a lot of Mr. Rogers out here in the adult world. That could have been a subtitle for this episode. Ain't a lot of Mr. Rogers in the spa pirate planet.
It's a great blues song too. Great blues song.
Yeah. I thought just on a functional level, it was well written and well directed to have this great sense of exactly what the kids feeling, our wonder of like, hey, it's fun. There's a hut. We're going to a spa. We're going to a pirate cave. Fun, fun, fun. But then there's also, almost more strongly than that to me, this sense of dread of, you don't want him to disappoint the kids. And it's one of those like, hey, from about minute 3, I feel like the audience kind of knows, he's going to disappoint those kids this episode. And you're just like, as we go deeper, deeper into the planet, deeper into the metaphor, deeper and deeper into adulthood and truth, you're like, please don't do the thing I know you're gonna do, which is really good drama, which really just structurally all sorts of great stuff. Yeah, and also final thing I'll say is the great cliffhanger. This to me is, it was a full complete meal onto itself, with comedy, with drama, with action, and then a true cliffhanger of where did the kids fall to? Will they find their own strength and power and get out of it? And what is Jod going to do with that lightsaber? What is the full truth of the story? All of those things are that's the thing to me on where these episodes end. Do they end with questions that are obvious to ask yourself and fun to think about for a week, or do they end without a question? Will Andor do his homework was not a fun question. The answer was yes, he will, because he's got to pull off the heist. Will the bad guys continue to chase Ahsoka and Sabine? Yeah, they're gonna. That's what's crystallized for me of the cliffhangers that aren't satisfying, is because the question left in my mind isn't interesting. These were great questions to be left with.
Great question. Thank you for acknowledging, even though I know you've talked about the Andor thing before. I feel like we're Bart and Milhouse in the tree when you're like acknowledging me, my Andor thing. Well said indeed. I can't wait to dive into themes. It's a little bit of a Rorschach test today, too, of what's in there for all of us. The adventure, growing up as adventure, and the adventure continues, kids. It never stops is something that's powerful for me. But Jenn, did you have a chance to sit down with the entire family, or were you tucked away in a corner on AirPods and a phone? What are your overall thoughts?
Yeah, it was one of those things where we had been talking about runtime, and was this going to be the 17-minute episode? And when I saw that this was 45 minutes at 8 o'clock, I said, guys, we can't watch it tonight. My 9-year-old was really disappointed. It's all right, well, we're going to watch it today. So I watched it by myself on the computer, which is very helpful, as we've talked about before, with the headphones, getting all the sounds, having my subtitles, which is key. This was my favorite episode of, I keep saying that every episode, but this was my favorite episode. It's so wizard, encapsulates how I felt. There were Easter eggs upon Easter eggs and references, and yet this is something we always talk about. How do you balance the fun of nostalgia and those references with making something fresh and new? And I thought that this episode did that so beautifully in a way that I have not seen in a very long time. It's earnest, it's authentic, it fits in with the stories and the characters, right? But it's like, hey, remember this? Remember this from Indiana Jones? Remember this from the Goonies? No, it's just like layered in there in such a beautiful way. Creatures, I was aliens. My mind was just like, I want more time to sit with this. So I too am grumpy. I would love to be able to really watch this multiple times, which I am going to tonight. But yeah, it was hard being released on a Christmas day.
I so agree with you about the connections to the larger galaxy and lore. None of them were just for fun, and none of them, well, maybe the hut was just for fun. But I think the key thing to me is, do you get the emotional weight if you don't have the knowledge? And, not to beat up on Ahsoka. Ahsoka is a show that's built on continuing lore, but there's some moments where, if you kind of didn't know that Kanan was a Jedi and died, the emotional weight of that beat is lost on you. I loved the banking clan because you're able, if you know that lore, that's so fascinating. But if you've never heard of that in Star Wars before, a banking clan having an economic summit on a spa is clearly like, this is a planet of white collar crime. You don't need to know that episode of the Clone Wars and Scipio to get any of that. And that's what always is the difference to me. Like, do you need to know lore to get emotionally and thematically what the episode is laying down? And in this episode, you didn't need to know the lore, and it's a bonus if you do.
Bonus indeed. Yeah. There's something, I love what you're saying, Jenn, of, I don't know, just looking at music where there's bands and artists that take influences or have their influences that are clear, but that doesn't mean they're just copying the bands that came before. They're just using the toolbox to tell their own story. And I think there's a fine line between that and a dividing line that sometimes can be misunderstood of, oh, this is just Goonies in space. It's so much more than that. Even though it's familiar, it's painting in its own, colors. I'll stick to the music ones, maybe not the art references there. So I love that there. Yeah, and for me, this is hands down the best episode of the season for me thus far. The speed in which the jokes came. And the jokes being from wonderful character perspectives. Even I feel guilty. I'm going to say this right now. I had a little bit of a different holiday season than maybe the two of you. I've watched this episode 5 times just because we had turned all invites to holiday parties away. We sat at home. Grace worked in a room quietly, and I was like, I'm just going to watch this again. So I feel a little guilty. Apologize. But even on my 5th viewing, there was beats out with SM33 that I had not completely appreciated or heard. Subtitles, put it on the headphones, all that stuff does help, Jen. And I was dying laughing at just, you can't play a shanty on a harp. I didn't pick that up really in detail till like the 3rd or 4th video. So I love all that, love the layers, love the comedy, love the adventure. It ties into what you're saying, Joseph. Can't wait to dive into that. But just such a well put together episode, and that's building on what came before it. And last week's was darker just in terms of the way it was shot and what was going on in this war-torn planet and children in war. And this episode had some of those dark moments. In fact, that tier of KB, I think we'll talk about in more detail. But this episode having the brightness, the snow-capped mountains, the luxury that is really just purchased for credits, slipped across the hotel desk door. What do they call that? The sandwich in Vegas, where you put $20 bill between your ID and credit card and you'll get upgraded. Loved all that stuff. But absolutely fun episode indeed. Some favorite moments, Jen, that you want to highlight?
Favorite moments? Okay, the hut, which could very well have been one of the twins, right, from the Book of Boba Fett.
Could have been, yeah.
We think maybe that the species that he's trying to, I think, eat. Perhaps I was like, is that the remember the crap dealer? I don't know if it's not craps. It's
the croupier,
yeah, the croupier. That's it.
Yeah.
Trogloff, the Trogloff species
yep.
from the Last Jedi. I was like, oh, I love it. Love my creatures. What else? I thought the lightsaber moment was genius because we're all expecting it's Star Wars. He's going to ignite the blade, and at least I was hopeful that it was going to be this heroic moment. And it was just so real how any of us might happen to any of us if we actually had a real life lightsaber. So many Ithorians walking around, an Ithorian statue. The planet itself, I thought, was brilliant. We have never gotten this kind of like spa, like I don't know what it was. There's something in Europe, like is it in Switzerland? Where is it? Like where people can go to the hot springs? Have you seen that?
I mean, I was
imagining that.
This reminded me of the Bilderberg meetings, the secret enclave of banking leaders and government leaders that meets. But but also that. Also that. Yeah. Oh my gosh, there were so many. Last thing I'll say, Jude Law. Jude Law is the anchor for this show. The kids are fantastic. They're great actors, but it really, the turn was relying on somebody that was going to be where I would believe it. And I felt devastated. And that long pause that felt almost too long, but because he filled it, it was so filled with whatever he was thinking that it felt very, very real. And I too, like the children, were disappointed. Oh, it was so good. Oh, one last thing. The children where he was trying to like get them to focus and they were jumping on the bed. I swear to God, you guys, that was so real. I have that. You're trying to leave to go to the airport and you're like, you guys, we're going to miss our plane. And they're, I'm like, do you understand the severity of this? just yell that now. Bloodthirsty pirates are coming after us.
I'm going to do that. And that's the last thing. Oh my gosh. There's just too much.
I love what you're saying about Jude Law because I had a really hard time carving my favorite moments down from 33 jokes and Jude Law choices.
Oh, yeah.
But I think that was the big picture power of Jude Law's performance throughout the show. But this particular episode this wasn't I've been the bad guy all along. I whipped the mask off. Ha ha. I fooled you. This was an adult wrestling with choices every beat along the way, and he played those from the small, like, yeah, God, do I have to give a pep talk to this kid? to
So good.
to the like, do I really have to deal with this person outing me? Do I really have to give this person my money? It's like he's playing like sort of the mono adult, the one adult, the he is the adult in this story, but in the way he plays those choices, he's playing an actual character, but he is playing sort of the concept of adult, of like, yeah, I know how to handle this. I know the truth. Oh, I don't want to do that. Every beat is him really playing the choice he has to make.
I'll force you to kind of whittle down some moments here in a second, but I absolutely love Jude Law in this, and like I don't know, it doesn't matter what he was to anyone outside of Star Wars before. Like, he's a movie star, right? Like, I got it. He's part of our generation, the last 25, 30 years of entertainment. Got it, Jude Law. I haven't paid much attention to him till this time around, and I love everything. And I'm not a great actor, but some acting lessons are don't go for the obvious choice. Energy 5 feet in front of you, where you feel it, and he's just hitting all that on a wonderful level that is just pulling me in. And you're so right, Joseph. Can't wait to dive in. Like I said, Rorschach test. Like, I took a lot from him in this episode that I don't necessarily even know or believe is what the episode was intending. But I was like, oh, we got ourselves a mirror up to a lot of adults right now. I had fun with that. But anyways, like you said, I'm with you too, Joseph. I stopped after one point because I was like, I can't just keep writing every line that SM33 says. Can't do that.
Mm-hmm. I don't know how soon we're going to lose Jenn, but I definitely have a question I want to ask Jenn before she goes. So, Ken, you're the adult today. You're leading us through the episode. So before Jenn goes, I want to be sure to ask her a question.
Jenn, sit down, take some notes. We're going to ask you questions.
Okay.
I think one of the big parts of this episode that I wanted to get your take on before you leave is the further continuation of the Jod in his relationship to the Jedi mystery. I think the episode is really making it clear, hey, not magnets. He uses the Force in small ways when he wants to, but we've crossed the threshold of seeing him use it in action when he blocks the attack from Fern and throws the weapon away. He of course uses the Qui-Gon Jinn line. How are you feeling about his truth, not only as a pirate, or is he going to be a guardian, a good adult to these kids, but his relationship to the Jedi and what it means to him, what it means to you in this story?
It was such a moment where I was like, what? He's quoting Qui-Gon Jinn. He's much more inside than I thought that he was. And he has perverted the Jedi philosophy, to his own advantage and manipulation. It's a real darkness that I don't think we have seen, because it's not Sith. Well, who knows, right? But that's not what it is. But it still is bad. And I don't want to say gray. It's not gray, but it's like, to me, it's a very real world example of evil, right? And I just thought that it was shocking, because then my brain started spinning, and I'm like, well, was he there? How old was he? Could he possibly? You know what I mean? And I'll leave that to the better theorists on that. But the fact that he did know so much, that he knew so much about the teachings, to me is like, oh, he knows his stuff, but now he's gone rogue and he's really twisting it to whatever he wants. It's a fun trick that he can pull out when he needs to.
Oh, I love that. For me, we'll see if it actually pans out, but it was what I hoped for, which is a really different Jedi story. To me, it is pointing toward the theory that many people had of he was absolutely in the Order and he just dropped out. It didn't work for him, or he got kicked out, and he pulls out his little Jedi phrase book every once in a while. And I so agree with you. And I think what was so great about that scene is it didn't feel like manipulation. It didn't feel like Sith anger. It just was like, I was taught this whole thing about attachment. And the Jedi philosophy of attachment is you can love people, but you have to be able to let them go, because otherwise it gets into being possessive. It's not about you loving them. It's not about their good. It's about your need for them. And that can be twisted. And, the Jedi, people have lots of strong opinions about the Jedi's relationship to attachment. But to me, as a philosophy, it is love people, but be able to let them go, so you don't become possessive, so you don't become greedy, so you don't make bad decisions, all that. And I love that he just heard it as, oh, actually, attachment is weakness. Attachment is just means kick everybody out, and you don't need people, and it dovetails so well with his conflict between pirate philosophy and Jedi philosophy, that the whole pirate philosophy in the show and in most of literature, and I've never been a pirate, but I would imagine in reality is you need a crew, but every pirate doesn't want to have a crew. So his twisted view of Jedi attachment is actually a perfect view of pirate philosophy, of like a crew, a thing you deal with when you have to, and then the second you can, just like what happened to Tak Rennod, you stab him in the back. And then that's the question of the show is, does he need the crew? Does he want the attachment of the kids? Or will he metaphorically stab them in the back?
Yeah, well said, indeed. Yeah, that moment where they're hearing the story of Tak Rennod, and he laughs, that kind of like, oopsie.
That was one of my favorite moments for sure. Is him becoming a kid about pirate stories.
Yeah. Love all that there. We'll dive into all. And Jen, I did do the math roughly. I mean, he could easily have been in the Padawan class with Anakin. He's at that kind of age. It's you start. We did the math earlier in this Skeleton Crew report of we did 10 plus 19 plus 3 4. How long was this for? You do that math. Where are we? 5 years after the fall? We don't quite know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But roughly, he could have been there. He could have been in there some classes with guest speaker Qui-Gon coming into Yoda's class.
Yeah. How do you feel about that, Jen? If your focus determines your reality isn't something that Qui-Gon said to Anakin once, but like Qui-Gon's just walking down the halls saying, "Hey kids, remember," like if that is a Qui-Gon class, if that's something that Qui-Gon taught a whole seminar to younglings, it's time for the focus speech from Qui-Gon.
It's like an inspirational quote that you see, from Albert Einstein. It just like it permeates. It travels, and people put it on their college dorm room.
It's a bumper sticker.
It's a bumper sticker. Exactly.
I love that there. I'll share a couple of my moments here, and then Jen, you can react to that. And Joseph, you can share some. And then Jen, we do want to cut you loose as soon as possible because you might have a little pirate crew hiding behind the curtains there.
Some elders.
I know. God. Oh, everything about that was great. You're talking about the John becoming a kid here in the pirate story, Joseph. That's a great way to look at it. I wrote down again, what you see yourself in a lot of these things. John explaining the Onyx Cinder to the kids was like a middle-aged man talking about a rare live album or a concert he was at, and he just said that. He's like, you don't understand, and just Fern being like, no, we do not care about Oasis live at Nebworth. We don't care about it.
I know the graphics look bad now, but GoldenEye N64, kids, you don't get it.
You don't get it. You weren't there, man. You didn't have a Commodore 64. But so I loved all the beats with that played in the other. There's so much depth in it. The John and Wim scene. It was perfection in so many ways, from the almost 30 Rock, there kind of energy that he carries into it. But then he gives what I believe is some real advice from his point of view, and just talking about that big theme, Joseph, of adventures growing up. It's all right there with Wim. It was wonderful. Yeah, the SM-33 stuff we could list. I mean, I said one of them, you can't play a shanty in a harp, but just, the whole gentrification humor, just Skull Ridge Mountain becoming this. But I love it goes by many names. Demon's Rest, Battle World, Lanupa. Just pitch perfect. Nick Frost killing it. Speaking of acting performance, I want to highlight Julianne Emery as the hotelier, the concierge, checking everyone. That lip face twitch that kind of plays in different ways throughout the episode. Absolutely love that. The restraining bolt bit, it's like, it's funny, number one, and then it just keeps repeating to the point where it becomes even more funny for me. Love that. The music cue of KB when she's using the wrench, just this young adventure Saturday morning kind of music cue. I love that. And we'll talk about the depth of it, but you got that moment that leads to the Wim lightsaber moment, which was also perfection. I almost fell off the treadmill watching it the first time, but that power and sadness of KB's one tear played against the line or played with, I should say, you're a grown up, you can't fight us, we're just kids, and all the heavy themes going on in that. KB being such a interesting character that we've spent some time with, and I'm sure we want to spend more time with, but the way she processes and expresses emotions being different from the other kids maybe on the team. Just that one tear coming down was a beautiful moment, as sad as it was too for me. Some of mine, Jen, any more there, or any thoughts on those, or any more from Joseph?
Yeah, sorry.
Oh yeah, please, no, please, Jen.
KB, I was concerned that this was going to be the episode where something bad would happen to her based on how she was reacting to the steam, that she couldn't go. And the fact that Fern was aware and was like, oh, the moisture, or I forget whatever she said. So I was glad that she was not harmed. I just want to shout out Kelly MacDonald was so good as Pocket. I loved her from Boardwalk Empire, as Meridia from Brave, that Disney movie. So good. And the costume, the makeup, the contacts really just nailed this like scary energy. Oh, I just thought she was so brilliant in the part. I wanted to see more of her.
Everyone in Discord is probably laughing while watching this, Jen, because I had fun. It wasn't real grumpiness, but I posted in our Discord of like, nuts to all these people saying she's from Brave. She is from Train Spotting. Gen X gives you the best pop culture. She's also great in Boardwalk Empire, by the way. But I was like, she is from Train Spotting. That is Kelly MacDonald.
Yes,
but yes,
right.
she's wonderful. She's wonderful always.
You and McGregor connection.
Yeah, she's the heart and soul of Boardwalk Empire. Yeah.
Yes, she is. She's great.
Yeah, there was. You thankfully, Ken took most of my 33 moments off my plate of listing.
Please share more.
But I did love him just popping up from the ropes after all that tension. We have him contained, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm good." There are a lot of beats in here where I think the comedy played well without being too on the nose. Where adults failed too. In a show that is about can kids become adults. I love that. Jod was childlike at many points. I did like the security robot saying to Wim's dad, "Sir, please show me both of your hands at the same time," because it was like Wendell's probably Rendell, right? That's his name.
Wendell, yeah.
Probably a great analyst and amazing at all of the things that he has studied for, and like just terrible at other tasks, right? And that was a great bit of comedy. I love some of Neil's big stuff, but Neil really wins for me when he does something quietly in the background. When the big beast is talking about being able to smell whether or not people are trustworthy, and Neil's just quietly sniffing Jod. It's so funny, and his eyes bulge a little bit of like he's not exactly sure to interpret what he got, but he's trying to take it in. So good. Yeah. So there's some of the I also love the Neil moment of when they're talking about Pocket sending mercenaries and it's deadly and they're all going to die. Neil says, "Why can't you just say sorry?" Like there's that level of naivete where it's like, that's what you've been taught. That's the Mr. Rogers of like, well, if you hurt somebody's feelings, say you're sorry. And like, he still doesn't understand how complex the adult world is. Like, yeah, that's not going to work on the murderous pirates who want to kill me for bounty and vengeance. Like, sorry.
And just pulling it from last week where he says it, and it's this profound, poignant moment that's true. But we even last week were saying, hey, it doesn't always work out here this week. He's just like, it worked with two warring clans.
Yeah. I wrote it down as comedy and drama because it is like, we should as adults build a society where that is the goal, that you can say, hey, I made a mistake. Maybe you made a mistake. Let's talk it out. That's what it should be. And it's so not. Couple other quick moments. I really wanted to highlight Jod's childlike wonder at the Onyx Cinder.
Yeah.
We'll talk about this more in themes, but this show has been built up on the perspective of young people having stories, and stories are what help you bridge that gap into being an adult. Of stories are safe ways to work through. You have to go into the dark forest and face your fear to get to the wonder, to pass through the trials and be an adult. And to see that Jod is still kind of motivated by, I'm as big of a nerd for stories as Wim is about Jedi stories. I'm that big of a nerd for pirate stories, was beautiful character building and funny. And like, who was that who laughed? Because that wasn't the Jod that we had met before that. Like, ha, 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 pirate laugh. So good. So good. That choice moment when he knew Wim needed to be comforted and didn't want to, and he's walking away and had the little stop the decision in the slump of, I have to try to comfort him. Beautiful. Couple quick action moments. I love the decapitation laser passing over the kids' heads. That was a great action moment, but another way to just reassert the themes of what we're dealing with here. The and I'm gonna love to hear what your kids feel about the level of violence and scariness in this episode, Jen.
Yeah.
But the security guy being shot right through the heart and then thrown into a ceiling of spikes by Urkel, the famous for "Did I just do that?" which is all I could think of. Did I just shoot a man through a chest and impale him on spikes? Did I just do that? Yeah. Final one for me, which I thought just tied up a lot of the ideas of the show, is Jod's getting to go into his pirate cave. That's real adventure for him, and saying "real adventure" to Wim, and then a child being shot at, which is like, that was really funny, but then it's a child being shot at. Yeah. Powerful. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Jen, you'll have to give us a follow-up report next week on your kids' reaction to this episode. That's been fun to track.
I've already prepped them this morning. I'm like, you guys, remember, these are actors. It's not real. A lot of these are special effects. I'm going to have to do that again. Because I was going to show them Indiana Jones. And then I was like, I looked it up. And I'm like, that's bad. That's bad. I think my 9-year-old maybe could handle it, but absolutely not my 5-year-old. We were exposed to so much as youngsters.
I mean, yeah.
Yep.
Temple of Doom did a number on me.
Oh, me too.
10, or 8 or 9, whatever.
I love that we're living in a world where you're going to have to sit your kids down and say, Urkel isn't real. He can't hurt you.
I know. They have no idea who Urkel is, but boy, I laughed so hard too.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, Jen, any final thoughts? If not, we'll let you go live your holiday life. Live the life you want today. Okay, your focus determines your reality.
Oh, that's right. No, one last thing I want to say is the rat. When SM-33 is reminiscing, it's not a rat, whatever it's called.
Space rat.
Space rat. When the SM-33 is reminiscing and the rat comes out and like stretches and goes, or whatever the noise it makes, it's like comfort. Like it's just so happy. Oh my gosh. I was like, I need that little plush. I need a real rat is what I need. I need a space rat.
Yeah. It lives in an eye hole. The eye hole rat. I think I haven't noticed any other canon name other than eye hole rat. So I don't think he needs another one.
No.
So bad at Galaxy's Edge.
Right?
Yeah.
You got like a little bucket to carry food in or popcorn, and then just a little rat. Beep, you could push a little space rat out.
Oh,
Sells
man.
itself.
You know what? It'll be a missed opportunity if they don't like really lean into Skeleton Crew and Galaxy's Edge. I think that it's right there. Make it happen.
Retheme it all to just have a year of Skeleton Crew. That they go there as well to bet too. Be great.
Yeah.
Jen, thank you for taking time out of your busy holiday day to hang out with us as always.
Thank you for letting me pop in and out.
No
like the rat in the eye hole.
problem. All right. Jen will join us in full for the next couple episodes and all that good stuff. Well, of course, next week's a holiday too, so we'll talk about that. Lest we forget that. But we're going to dive in a little bit deeper with themes. I can't wait for this, Joseph. Like I said, there's so much there. And I'm going to admit right now, I have some definite overall thoughts. I think you're nailing some of the stuff as usual. But like, yeah, man, I had one of those like, who am I kind of moments. And I'll say up top, I texted a couple friends. I can't pull back from this. I think Jod is a top 5 Star Wars character for me right now. We'll see where he goes. But just in terms of, I love what's going on. I'm entertained. I'm laughing. But I'm also, much like Han Solo, like, I love Han. Ooh, but what am I learning from Han is valuable. That's going on with Jod and me.
I totally agree. I really need to make an effort to just do a little less collecting across the board, including action figures. And I finished that episode and my finger started hovering over the Jod action figure. My only question is, do I wait for the blue shirt and the lightsaber? But I say that in a joking way, but to me, that is the motivation for the action figures. They make the ephemeral, your connection to a character, concrete. Anyway, I totally agree with you. Jod is a wonderful performance, a next level character. While we're at it, we're going to get into the theme. So I just want to throw this out here really quickly about SM-33. Lines are written well. Nick Frost is a comedian, and good actors of any stripe can do comedy. But Nick Frost is a comedian. Yeah. And part of the value of those lines is, hey, if you need a dance, hire a dancer.
Yeah.
If you need a great lightsaber choreography, hire somebody who has fight experience. If you want great comedy, hire comedians. That delivery on the Demon's Rest Battle World, Lanupa. It's a funny line, and a million actors could have delivered it.
Yeah,
but he made it sing because he has those chops. So I just wanted to put out that appreciation for Nick Frost.
I absolutely think it's right to do so again and again and again, because this was probably the best episode with him, and he's been nailing it thus far. But it just was the layers and the way it kept going, and the precursor to all the theme talk. I'm right there with you. As I've documented on the show now for the last year, I'm getting rid of a lot of figures. I'm stopping my collection. I kind of think I need a Jod because of what you're saying. If you put a Jod on a shelf or hang it and display it, for me right now, that's like, this represents more than just a character I love. It represents a part of my journey, part of my personality, part of the questions. I think that's kind of where I'm at with my Star Wars collecting, of beyond just the general. It's what does this mean to me? And I don't know. I might add the card on that.
Okay. There's a discount on Amazon right now. I'm just saying.
Okay.
Just saying.
Perfect.
Jods are flying off the shelf for $10. Just saying. Just saying. All right. Let's get into the big themes. There's a ton of things to dive into, but I do think that a lot of them were focused on the really central idea of the show of how do we make choices, of adulthood is not, as it's being advertised to the kids on At Attin, this simple path of you make a choice when you're young, you take a test, you pick a path, you stay on that path, and all of your choices are pretty straightforward because they're regulated by society. The truth is, as Wim says, it's scary and confusing, which I thought was great for Wim's line. It's not just it's scary. It's not just I thought adventure was fun and then frightening things happen. It's confusing because why? Because choices aren't clear. How we make choices aren't clear. And I thought a lot of the themes are what can we possibly look to? What can these kids look to help them make choices? Is it trust? Is it friendship and attachment? Is it stories? There's a lot in this episode that paid off about stories, and it really made me think about the idea that stories can be absolutely just be entertainment. But a lot of time, stories are what we look to help us make decisions. I think it's what you and I are talking about with our Jod action figures, because it's a symbol of what we like. But I know there'd be some days if I put my Jod right on my desk, I'm going to be like, am I going to make a good Jod decision or a bad Jod decision? And it's about using stories to help us make the choices of our life, which is sometimes, I do love stories as escapism, and we do need escapism, but that's sometimes maybe why I bristle at it, of like, if you love a story, it can help you make choices. Do you want to be like the characters you love? Do you want to make good choices like they do? Do you want to be like the characters that you love to hate and make bad choices that hurt other people? Do you want to make the choice to be aware of your choices? And I thought a lot of that was going on. So that's where big picture where I went. And then within that, a lot of things we've already started to talk about of identity, of adventure, attachment, power of story, all that kind of stuff. So that's where I started. Where do you start?
I'll start within the world you're playing in. I put down some notes too of the fear, confusion, and loneliness of growing up, and how often you do feel alone, and that also leads to the need of connection and stuff, which was definitely part of this episode. And I wrote down that line too of it's played well for comedy again, but. You and I could probably have a lot of fun doing a Star Wars comedy theory podcast episode, and maybe we will. And I know it was not just something you and I have done professionally, but that's an area of study for you, comedy theory. The comedy of character so present in this episode, but so a line of "We're not elders, we're kids," which is this great comedy moment of you just gave away the secret. It's a big theme for this episode for me. It plays so true, as comically as they look like they're hobbits of some kind going to get a ring. I love that it just is at play in this episode. And you talk about choices. I put one of the big themes, or not even theme, one of the lessons is what I call instinct, the fuel of trust. We have a lot of trust going on in the show and has been at play since the beginning. Who do you trust? What do you trust? What's the truth? Got all that. Do you trust the supervisor? Office. We have a great Office Space sequel going on the side here with the parents, and the supervisor ain't going to help you. But this instinct, because you talked about in the overall thing, it's almost, especially on your second viewing, it is painfully, and I mean that in a wonderful way, painfully obvious what Jod is going to do at some point. What is in question? But from the beginning, Fern has Jod clocked. She almost says it. The story that SM-33 is telling and Jod's reacting to is about a first mate going after the captain and all this treachery.
Challenging them. Yeah,
challenging
specifically.
them. Literally says it. Everyone had Jod clocked. Pocket comes up and tells them that. The concierge is like, what name is this? Cathalops. A spectacular character, by the way. Patrick Seitz voicing him. You were right. Do not trust him, which of course indicates that Ferd and possibly Wim have said, yeah, we don't trust him. You were right. So it's instincts. But how do you know? What's the dividing line? How do you know when to trust? Because as you said, Jod is making, I think, 50 choices in this episode because he's not sure. I think he has this overall view. We'll talk about what it means in terms of the Jedi way. But he's going along. And your instincts, but sometimes what your instincts say and what you're seeing doesn't match up. So, all right, maybe you trust. And how do you trust? If this is a story of adventure leading you to growing up and the adventure growing up, this is a big stepping stone. You got to learn instinct and trust. Loved how it played out.
I love that, and I think that is like one of the key ideas of the episode because it's what it's structured around. I kind of wrote it down as the surface versus the truth.
Yeah,
and Jod is the spa is Jod. There is a truth, a dark truth at the core, and then there's all this stuff on top of it, which may or may not reflect the truth. 33's line, the outside may have changed, but the lair is deep in the heart of the mountain. He could be talking about Jod. There's some niceties on the surface, but the angry, bubbling pirate lair is underneath. There's a lot of ways that I think the episode plays with reminding us that it isn't that just like Jod has this truth. He's tricked them. This isn't Maul with Ezra, right? This isn't just he's wearing a mask. It's I would like to be different. I would like to be able to help these kids out. He doesn't have to go sit down with Wim. He doesn't have to, encourage Wim to use his imagination. It's less, who am I really, and more, what am I going to make a choice based on? What is going to be most important to me in this bubbling heart of greed? And the way he connects to that story of, what does he say specifically about this story of like, Tak Rennod was amazing. He went through the galaxy taking whatever he wanted. And it's that's what's at the core of him of like, that's just too powerful to resist. I want to be a guy who can take whatever he wants. And if I had an Old Republic mint and I could mint brand new coins and claim to people they were ancient, I could just go through the galaxy taking everything I want. And that is more important to me than anything else. Yeah. But to get to that point, the episode I think does a great job of emphasizing the sheer volume of Jod's fake names and the sheer volume of his broken relationships, that everybody knows him by a different name, but nobody trusts him. The spa itself, I think, is worth talking about in this theme of, do you follow the surface or do you follow your instincts like you're talking about? Cathalops is a great example of that. Big, scary monster. Oh, but actually, what is he really? Just a
good dude.
An old dude with a weird, Cthulhu-like tentacle mustache who likes stories, which is another way that the themes play at it. But the idea is honestly like Skull Ridge Mountain, which is great pirate jokes. That's something that used to be true of like carved probably on the entrance, something like, the death to all who enter, right? This is a pirate lair where we hide treasure. And if you come in, we'll effing kill you. Yeah. It's dark, but it's honest. And then they put a spa on it. And then it isn't just a spa. It's a spa that takes bribery. And it's a spa that's hosting the banking clan, which if we tie into other Star Wars lore is an absolute symbol of greed and manipulation. And to me, it's just like the spa screamed white collar crime planet of like, maybe some people are there just getting a bath, but most people are there to launder money or cheat on their spouse or do all manner of adult crime. And so you look at it and you go, on the surface, this has changed. It's become beautiful and clean and polite. But in reality, it's just doing the same crap as the pirates, but in a less honest way. And to your point, a way that requires intuition and to look around like KB keeps doing and just look and say, really look at what's going on and what am I seeing? What am I being told, you know?
Yeah. Man, there's so many things I want to unpack. Going back to the Jot of it all too, and instincts, and just him reacting to stories, and we'll dive in deeper, I'm sure. But like, going back to, was it episode 2 or 3 where we first kind of meet him? So it'd be episode 3 when he escaped. And that great scene where he eats first, but then does offer to the hungry kids. And learning, I think, in the StarWars.com notes that was, or maybe an interview that came out, that was a Jude Law suggestion in the process of making this, of the whole, just the beat. I'm sure, then they kind of maybe go back and script it, but just him being so in tune to the character's choices, where, he's not a monster. He's going to let the kids eat, but I'm going to get what I want first, right? Just that saying right who you are, but masking it with these niceties or these things that you feel you got to do, but also he's at war with it. There's a part of him that he would have just like, I'll eat the oatmeal, the space oatmeal, and I'm good. You take care of yourself. But he still has something pulling him, not even back, but pulling him apart, I guess, in a way. So to bring it back to this episode, and you're right, I wrote down that line too. The outside may have changed, but the lair is deep in the heart of the mountain, and him being this mountain of traps, this mountain of acid, this mountain of treasure, this mountain of possibilities, this mountain of just selfish desire. Love how that played out, and then to play that, alongside the kids growing up, and just you start to know this is around the age you got a sense you're not a baby anymore, and Fern. That's why I love Fern being such a good leader. She knows it. She's just eventually going to learn to stick with that, and I think there's a painful lesson, unfortunately, in this episode for her on that. But yeah, loved all that.
Yeah. I thought that what was going on with the kids was also kind of in this theme of identity and the surface versus the truth. And there's a lot in this episode of, obviously the kids are, going through this time of change where they're learning what it means to be adults, and they're trying to be adults. And they have some real successes this episode where they are smart and intuitive and figure things out. But they're not adults yet. And that is the truth in the heart of their cave, right? So everything with them playing elders is funny comedy, but it's comedy of truth of like, let's pretend that they're wise elders. But the second, like every kid in the real world, the second they see a hotel bed, giggling and jumping on it, hilarious, but also just goes to this whole theme. The arc of Fern in this episode was so poignant and painful of, she is the one closest to seeing what the adult world is. I think, her mom Farah is more tied to how everything actually works on At Attin. I think she has maybe seen some real hypocrisy in problems with the system that the other kids haven't seen.
Right.
And throughout this whole episode, she's kind of after her stumble and her doubt and her fear last episode, she's really smart and really ferocious right at the beginning, giving it right back to Jod of like, no, you just want what you want and you're scared, and keeps him on his toes. She's very aware of the deal and, reminds him, you only get your reward when you get us home. She is on top of him being like, oh, you're only going to treat us nice when it's a transactional relationship. So the fact that she's kind of successfully being this ferocious, smart adult who knows the sad way the adult world actually works, that she's the one who has to break down and say, you're grown up, you can't fight us, we're just kids. That's like getting down to the truth of sort of her cave, and it's not a bad thing. It's the truth of like, I can play at being an adult. I can try to be an adult, but I'm not an adult yet. And I can't fight you. It was so beautiful and so sad, but I thought really was one of the things that made this episode sing, because the kids were a part of this journey of identity of what are we pretending we are on the surface versus what are we in truth.
Even the great bit with Wim and the lightsaber is absolutely in this bucket of themes, and it's played wonderfully. And it even if I didn't anticipate that happening, because I had this. I was, they set it up. He sees the lightsaber, and then you're like, I bought into it. That's why it worked for me on a comedy level to the extreme that it did. Is I bought into it. It's like, what a moment! He's going to ignite that blade, but he's a kid, and that's the weight of that moment. And I just finished my Obi-Wan Kenobi series rewatch, and as you've discussed and we've discussed here, it is so much about the older generation, how they take care of the younger generation, the best ways to go forward. Bail with little Leia and her mom, but they're also like how we treat the past generation, how we treat the youth, and how and to have this moment. I just finished that this weekend, and to have this moment of, God, man, you failed on so many levels here, and that painfully, tragically real moment of Fern. Who, you're right, is and I don't know if they're in the same school grade or whatever it is, but she's played a little older, and I don't just mean that in terms of maybe the actor's the oldest of the bunch. Doesn't factor what I'm saying. She's played a little older. There's something there. There's a little bit more world awareness, and to have it just break down so tragically in this episode was powerful. Which is why, again, it wasn't just that this was a super funny episode and fun adventure. It had a lot of weight to it. A lot of weight to it.
A lot of weight to it, and I love the lightsaber moment, but I do think the music overplayed their hand, because I was the music was too triumphant, and I felt the undercut of him igniting it backwards coming. Didn't stop me from enjoying it at all. Absolutely great, and so great for it to end in Jod's hand, and I thought that the show did such a great job of contrasting Wim's love of the Jedi story with Jod's romantic love of the pirate story. So great. And all these sort of themes of what is the truth lurking under the surface. You need your intuition to figure it out. I think intuition is such a great word that you're emphasizing, Ken. All of that to me connects back to they're going to go on this adventure, and the question at the end is, how are they going to face their home, which is not what it claims to be on some level. It gets back to the suburban anxiety that the show is playing with of what is all this conformity covering up? And in the real world, in my experience, a lot of the parents who were the most, everything is perfect. I have 2.5 kids and my car gets great gas mileage, and I'm going to, throw a fit at the school if I see something improper. Those were the parents who were not there for their kids, who were doing awful things behind the scenes. And I think that anxiety of, I don't think their parents are doing awful things. I think they're caught up in a system, but I think there's a truth of At Attin that is being hidden under the surface. And I think, even the adults saying the supervisor isn't going to help us, even the adults are being failed by the parental figure and need to figure out what is the truth. So this episode, it was great by itself, but also really setting the kids up for, I think, the finale of how are they going to face the truth that their home isn't what it claims to be.
Well, look, there's that. I at the end of the third episode, I thought maybe we're heading back to At Attin sooner than I thought. I had this okay, look, maybe that's what we're doing, and there's something else in the story, but I don't know. Maybe they return next week. We'll see. But the picking up of the lessons along the way, like you say, when they return home, they're going to have a toolbox, hopefully, with a lot of things to see things as they are. And for the parents, it's a great scene, great comedy moment there. A little disappointed we didn't see Neil's dad after the image of him came out this week and was shared around the world. I put down Office Life. The supervisor can help us, a little Office Space sequel, but it's almost like the parents are having to relearn things they might have long buried as well, right? That's they're restarting an adventure that maybe they never started. Love that they're getting together to go against the supervisor.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'd love to drill down a little bit more into the whole idea of stories and this really this archetype of becoming an adult through having to pass through fear to get to the wonder.
Yeah.
The whole idea of adventure stories as metaphors for becoming an adult. Like I was saying at the beginning, I feel like this episode really reminded me that the point of story time is entertainment, but it's also to play with different choices and ideas of what we could be. And I think the two stories that motivate, there's more than two stories, but the stories that motivate Wim, his Jedi story, and the stories that motivate Jod in this episode, which are just old romantic pirate stories that he laughs at in a childlike way. Those are examples of two different kinds of stories that exist in the real world. Of a Jedi story is a hero story of, can you face fear and terror and make all the right choices? Can you stand up to the darkness? Can you be there for your friends? Can you let go when the time is right? Can you show mercy? Jedi stories are didactic of, here's how to be the best you could be. Pirate stories are, let's fantasize about, in a safe way, about giving into the worst of our instincts. What if we did all the things that we were told not to? What if we were really selfish? What if we did betray our friends? What if actually, going to the cookie jar, stealing them all and getting them for yourself was actually a way to live your entire life? I thought it was really great the way that those stories were combined. Seeing Wim being sort of failed by his stories, and then having Jod actually encourage him. Like, actually, no, imagination, your obsession with stories could be of value to you. I thought that was a really great way to look at stories. I keep forgetting the big weird guy's name, Catholops.
Catholops, yeah.
Catholops had a great, little through line in this of stories do have value, because that's what they basically traded to get his help. They're telling him their story. And even his line when they're leaving is like, I would love to hear your story one day. And that might be how they escape this planet. It might be, they might come riding in on At Attin, on Catholops, because he values stories. So I thought there was a lot with the fear and wonder tension, and a lot with just like, why do we tell stories? What is the value of telling stories? And in this episode, we're seeing Wim and Jod actively make choices based on the stories they have a fascination with.
Yeah, and even Catholops, is it Neil that says it, or Wim, that when the rest of the group shows up, he'd help us if we entertained him, and so they tell a story. Yeah, it's something that plays a lot into our conversations, and we loved The Mandalorian Season 3, that second or third episode that literally had, Bo-Katan saying, these are just stupid stories we tell kids. These are just these little fake traditions they make. It means nothing. It means nothing. And her having, the mythosaur being real, and the stories, not just that the stories are true, but why we have the stories. It's why you and I fight for the idea of playing with your action figures. We might now both have Jods in our collection to put on a shelf and take those lessons. It's the value in art, and instead of have it play out. I think you're totally right that these two stories, both motivating them, but also it could be twisted, or what they're reacting to in the stories. Jod's reactions are priceless on so many levels, but telling. I love this through line of literally the adventure to go into the deep. Something we talk about often too. Go into the deep, go into the pit of despair to get out on the other side. But to have it be a scary Catholops that is intimidating and traps and booby traps. Man, I feel like I'm in 7th grade watching this show.
Right? It is exactly kind of what Jod and Wim are affected by these stories, and we're getting to enjoy these stories, the stories of heroism, and the stories of it's kind of fun to be a pirate. It's fun to go into the darkness and to make bad choices. We're getting the lessons and the release. We're getting everything that we want from stories, but there's also a great complexity to them. We've talked a lot about, Star Wars is for kids of all ages. Star Wars is for, sometimes helping kids take their first steps into adulthood. And I think, it's a lot of midlife crisis Star Wars stories, and a lot of what do you want? What do you want to choose as you're an adult? And I think that was a part of the power of story to me, in particular. Jod's question of, did he start out as a Jedi? That's a great fun canon thing, and we talked about, and we'll talk more about the Qui-Gon of it all and all that. But I think, to me, there was this connection of the kids are going to need to learn that once you start on a path, there's no guarantee you'll stay on a path. That is that's the life they're being told is real on At Attin, of you take a test when you're young, you determine your path, and then you're this kind of analyst, and you do that for the rest of your life. And that's adulthood. And not only are they seeing a complex, scary, confusing adult world, they're seeing an adult who, from Wim's perspective, he's going to learn, I think, that Jod started off on a path of a Jedi. And he made a different choice. And the complexity of what's going on between Jod and Wim is so great. Jod, I think has a line that I think is going to be really key. Of he says some, twisted things about attachment, but he encourages Wim to invest in his Jedi stories. He encourages him to use his imagination, and he says specifically, "Make your life the one you want to live." And in an episode where Jod makes bad choices, fails the kids, is immensely dark, I think that line is going to be the moral of the story. I think that line is going to be the moral of the show, when they get back to At Attin and realize all this conformity, all this structure might have a purpose, but it isn't real adulthood. You don't make one choice and you're locked into it forever. That's the terror of adulthood. Might be, it's confusing and we have to make all these choices. The wonder of adulthood is we can make whatever choice we want to have the life we want to live. Make your life the one you want to live is a gift that Jod gave to Wim this episode, in the midst of disappointing him horribly.
Yeah, this is the meat of the episode for me, and what you take from it. And yeah, this is kind of like untangling the idea of destiny, and that can be exciting because the choices are still yours to make if you're untangled from this idea of you're on a path, like you're saying. I'm using destiny. The show's using suburban life that we keep going back to, but not that living in I live in the suburbs. They're fine. Yeah. A lot of room, great parking. But this very Star Wars idea, because I really connected to what was going on with Jod, not the decisions Jod has made, but when he's given that advice, and yeah, we'll talk about the connections without a doubt. When he's given that advice, it comes from, there's a lot of truth to it. There's a twisting of the attachment thing, but guess what? Star Wars, even the fandom sometimes, I think, has twisted the attachment talk. The characters, it's easy to twist up, but it comes from this point of truth. There's some great focus determines your reality. Forget the Qui-Gon of it all. That's just, yeah, I agree with that. And yeah, make the life you want. That's such a dreamy, great, wonderful, freeing way to look at it. Make the life that you want. But Star Wars has many times given us examples of characters who thought they were doing that or made those choices. I gravitate to Han and his decisions along the way to become something that he wants to be, but it's not really the true him, and he has to eventually work his way back to that. But I look at Kylo Ren. He becomes in Last Jedi the supreme leader he wants. He is Kylo Ren. He is all that. But deep down inside, he's still Ben Solo, and that's going to tear him apart. And I put down the question of Jod saying some truth from his point of view that I think Wim and the show could play out, and there be some truth to it. But why is Jod building this life? And then we see time and time again, the past is there for him. He cannot destroy his past. He cannot erase his past. We all cannot erase our past, but you can grow from it. You can change from it. You can continue to make the choices that are in front of you. You don't want to go back, but you can't erase back, right? And Rise of Skywalker played with, you were a smuggler, you're a spice runner, you're this, you're that. Your scavenger, that's all there. I thought that was so powerful for the episode for me of because Jod does let them eat the oatmeal, because Jod does give him their speech, because Jod has something going on inside of him. It's why, and I'll end my little rant here. Your idea, we'll talk about more predictions and the bigger questions and stuff, but we love jumping around when it really kind of is relevant. Your thought of, now we know Jod is a Force user. There's no tricks. There's no chicanery. But I don't think he is, quote, another Order 66 survivor, which is an easy conclusion to make if you learn someone in this timeline is a Jedi. But the fact that he made the choice, or things led him to decide or drop out or leave, and he just didn't complete that journey. He was on one and he didn't complete it, and it changed, and not necessarily for the better, is a powerful character alongside these kids who are going to have that in front of them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love the way it's written, because they keep framing it as, well, how can you use the Force if you're not a Jedi?
If you're not a Jedi, yeah.
A Jedi is a choice. A Jedi is a commitment. A Jedi is a worldview. A Jedi is a focus that determines your reality. And I made a different choice on my reality. I'm not a Jedi. I can move things with my mind. But I'm not a Jedi. Yeah, I really love what you're saying, and I think that Qui-Gon quote of "your focus determines your reality." We're making jokes about it being a bumper sticker, but I think it is a big idea boiled down into something that's easy to hold and understand. And to me, like, what it's standing in for is, again, those stories of what do stories mean? What are the values of stories? Stories are places where we get ideas of what our focus could be, and then we determine our reality by making choices based on which story do we believe. In the Jedi and the pirate stories, the hero and the villain stories tell us different focuses of reality. In the Jedi story, you stand up to fear, you work with others, you help people. It's a story of hope, of it isn't naive to dream, to use your imagination, to believe in yourself and others. Those things aren't naive. The pirate story is another reality of, the truth is everyone's out for themselves, so just be out for yourself better than everyone else. And Jod was taught one, and then his focus determined his reality. He rejected the Jedi story and he picked the pirate story, and that continues to be the tension of which is he going to pick in the end.
Yeah. And you know what? At this point, with Jod, I don't know. And that's what I love about it, right? I have some hopes. he might go too far.
Well, I thought, we can get into the predictions at the end as well, but I didn't feel like this was, like I said, a mask off of, haha, I've always been planning this. It was just like, now I have the truth. I have the coordinates. It's a mint. I can make my own money. And if Fern, who is headstrong and smart, still has control of this droid, still has control of this ship, my way. So they just got to get out of my way. They got to get it. It wasn't hatred, or I don't like you, or I don't want to be a parent, or I've always been planning to do this. It was just, you're in my way, and I choose my pirate story. I choose my pirate belief that you got to be out for number one. And I don't like doing this, but I got to get them out of my way, because they're going to be in my way from going and getting whatever I want, which is the story I choose to believe in.
This is one of my favorite moments in the episode I didn't discuss earlier. I'm glad you just jogged my memory. My notes got sparser as I was rewatching, because I just was rewatching the episode again. Shout out again to the director, Jake Shire, for making this decision along with his team, I'm sure, to when... Let me go back even further. This thing we talk about a lot around on ForceCenter, the destiny is just the thing that leads to the next choice. I so agree with you that the end of this episode isn't, I was always a dark Jedi. Along the way, he's presented more and more truths of this mission. Oh, At Attin is real? Wait, this is the Onyx Cinder? Oh my God, and it's a mint? And that, you don't see his face. There's that shot where he turns around. And a lot of this stuff is, and it's like he's committing to a lot of the next choices he's going to make, committing to this pirate story, and you just feel the weight of his shoulders. It's this great shot. It's a great decision, great acting, great writing, great performance, great editing, great. But that was one of the more powerful moments for me, is you feel he's turned away, and it's like he's not just adding the math, and he might be wrestling a little bit, but not in Angel versus Devil, but just like, okay, yeah, I'm going to do this. It is some kids in the way, but hey, that's what you got to do. That's the Tak Rennod would kill his crew. Like, life had no value. Money had value. Oh, so good. And yeah, we don't want to be Jod.
No. And there were two shots where he faced away from the camera and we watched him make a decision from behind. There's the more whimsical one where he turned and gave the pep talk to Wim. And there was the darker one where I think he was just calculating of like, okay, I'm taking that mint. How can I get off the planet with the kids in tow with this deal intact? Nah, Fern isn't going to let me. And so, the just yield delivery. It's so dark. It's so scary. Awful. One of the other little connections that I liked through the sort of story time was a little bit of the kind of the old the villain building their own defeat accidentally. When he encourages Wim to use his imagination, to not give him up, that has value. And I love that it's Wim who comes up with the creative way for them to escape at the end, that his imagination, his love of stories does continue to pay off throughout the episode. I thought was a nice little grace note.
Absolutely. I mean, a pitch perfect setup indeed, but just a great use of themes. This is why we love diving into themes and have for years here. But this episode to me is just a textbook kind of goal. If I'm in I can't even say the words. I'm a horrible writer now. If I'm in a screenwriting class again, this is an episode I would use to be like, let's break down how themes just to drive the decisions of your characters and drive the decisions of your jokes and your beats and your moments and your shots. I think it's put together so well.
Yeah, just know what it's about. And I think, one of the other things that I really liked in this episode, in this idea that's been going through the whole show of, this is an adventure story. Can they pass through the fear to the wonder and to the ability to be strong and confident themselves? This question, not only in the episode of Will Jod Betray Them, but how much have they learned? Can they step up? And there are the triumphant moments where the kids do step up. KB with the wrench. Everybody laughs at her, but she knows what she's doing and she figures it out. Wim and Fern with Catholips, like calling and begging for help. And then being like, actually, no, we were imaginative and communicative and we figured it out. The figuring out of the acid puzzle. They don't do it all on their own, but it is them working through it. Wim's imagination does pay off. So there's this kind of this buildup of they are stepping up, they are growing, and then that tragedy at the end of like, oh, and they're not there yet with the lightsaber, and with Fern giving up and going, I am a kid, please. One of the other really elegant parts of the episode that I think is sort of like a great screenwriting lesson of everything helps tell your story is all of these questions about, can they enter adulthood? What does it really mean to be an adult? There's all the great stuff of, the nice spa hiding the darkness below. But there's, I think, an escalation in this episode that they get lots of jokes from, and they don't cross the line. But there's constant reminders that, adulthood also includes lots of other things that these kids aren't ready for, like sex and booze and banking crimes.
Banking.
Like the nature of this planet is not just a spa, a nice thing. It's a triple X-wing planet. Kids aren't allowed. And you can imagine that's for lots of reasons, but it's not just a danger, but there's a strong sense of sexuality on this a planet. There's earlier in the story of the pirate of, I believe it's Fern, the most knowledgeable, asking what's a concubine, and him having to change the topic because that is specifically sexual in nature. He is given, Jod's complaining, and they give him a giant space margarita. And he's like, great. So there's not just the escalation of confusion, bad choices, violence. I would argue that the nature of violence is escalated when he calls for 33 to do the acid bath, and we get the shot of the kids not being like, we were running and somebody got shot behind us in defense of like, we calmly, knowingly participated in burning people alive. It's much more visceral, and we had a specific shot to let us know that the kids know what's happening. So we had an escalation of violence, we had an escalation of sexuality, we had alcohol, and we had this sort of picture of a place that commits adult crime, of white collar crime, that the bankers of the world, the adults of the world have built systems so they can crime everywhere. all of that was packed in, and you could absolutely just sit and watch this show and go, "That's funny, that was entertaining," and go on with your day. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Right. But on a deeper level, you're taking in all these messages that the show brought in, and every little joke. What's a concubine? He got a margarita. There are banking deals going on. Every one of those things is making you more tense about what a challenge it is in front of these kids to step into the world of adulthood.
Yeah, the escalating violence, you don't, even with the guard, you don't see it directly, and I would expect that for this Disney Plus show at this point. But I love what you're talking about from the almost whimsical KB. Knowing, again, I love this idea with KB. She always kind of understands and figures out how things work, and so she uses that to her advantage here with a great scene. But the concubine joke is great. The alcohol, it's adulthood, right? It almost sounds like we're preaching in on Sundays. Avoid these things, children, but you can't. It's all there. It's all part of the journey.
Yeah, and I mean, and part of it is I'm being pretty hard on Spa Planet, but I mean, I'm sure there is an element of it, like. Yeah, it's just it's Vegas, right? It's Vegas, Monte Carlo, whatever. It's adults doing adult things, having relations and drinking, and those things aren't. I'm not saying those are crimes.
Right,
I'm saying it's part of the complexity of adulthood.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, again, 12-year-olds stepping out into adulthood. It just comes up time and time again in Star Wars because you never stop learning those lessons. You check into the win and see what you do, okay, kids?
So I think for me that's some of the big stuff. Definitely the attachment theme I thought was another one that we've already talked about a little bit, but it might be worth talking a little bit about more because as you said, Star Wars fans wrestle with the question of Jedi attachment, and Star Wars itself wrestles with Jedi attachment of, is Luke wrong to hope for more attachment to his father? And no, he is right to see that there could be attachment. Obviously, there's nothing wrong with Anakin loving Padme. It's that Anakin can't let go of Padme, even to the point of doing things that Padme herself is horrified by. So it's kind of extremes from Skywalkers, but everything in that we play with, hey, can Jedi just have adult relationships and it's fine, friendly, and then you're just like, but it's not an attachment, and I let you go and you let me go and we go on our way, and the hope of will Rey allow Jedi to have more attachments. Was Luke cruel to Grogu to say you have to choose your attachment to Din or your commitment to the Jedi Order, Yoda's lightsaber or your little chainmail?
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
Was that cruel? Fans discuss. This episode, I thought there was a tension across the board because it's what the adults on At Attin are going through. Of we have all of these systems to keep us in place, and we're breaking them because we're choosing attachment. We're choosing our kids. We're choosing our responsibility as adults to be there. That's about attachment. The kids' attachment to Jod, I think, is really interesting. Is they want agency. They want to become adults. Fern and Wim in particular. But they also really want to be kids and be taken care of by an adult. Like, they kind of want Jod to step up and could you please be an adult in the room? Yeah. Can we please have this attachment that society tells us we're supposed to have? Could you please be the adult so we could continue to be kids figuring this all out? And then you get into Jod's twisted spin on Jedi attachments. How did you feel about what the episode was wrestling with about attachments and Jod's take on it?
I think it throws a little bit more acid into the bath in a fun way. You ran down the list quite wonderfully there. And by the way, I think it's supposed to be a little confusing for even us fans. Who's right? Is Luke right for running off to go into Cloud City, or is Yoda right? Is Ben right? I don't know that the action, that everything that happens, maybe Yoda and Ben Kenobi might have been right, but it's your friends, and as it's played for in this episode, it's played for this idea of what Jod thinks he has a ton of freedom. He just thinks he has no attachments, no anchors down. I can have a different name on every planet. What a wonderful life I've led, and he's in a prison, right? He's in an emotional prison that he probably is very aware of, and that's why I think he keeps trying to this idea of make your life the one you want to live. I love it. I'm kind of going through that in my life of like, what do I want to be here? It's taking me too long. Just rewatched. I just rewatched one of the all-time Christmas movie classics, Collateral. Michael Mann, Tom Cruise, Jamie Foxx, Jada Pinkett Smith. One of my favorite films. It's an action,
very good
crime thriller. But I don't like it for any of that stuff. I like it because Vincent and Max, Jamie Foxx's cab driver, are like these two heads on my shoulders about who do you want to be and how do you want to do it and who's right and who's wrong and do you want to, or you just want to be old and with no commitments and your dreams have failed because you never tried. And I'm looking at Jod, and this is all connecting to me, similar vibes of just like, he's speaking this like wistful, like this is what you want to do. And he's been in pain his whole time. And who he wanted to be is still in flux. He's got a lifetime of failures. And so it's like this question of why are you building this life? If you think this is the life you want to live, why are you building it? And are you going to pull back from that? Have you gone too far down the path? Does the grabbing that lightsaber kind of confirm? It confirms the choice, but does it lock you into it? And what will you as the adult? What will you as an adult once you're faced with the next choice? It's one thing for the kids. Now it's for you. Now it's Jod. Mm-hmm. What are you going to do next? What are you going to do next?
Yeah, and he got the kids on his side with that. I'm like you.
Yes,
I'm alone. And we did meet him in the very first scene as failing his crew, failing his family, and being thrown in prison by his chosen family. And yes, it is a part of pirate family to always betray one another.
Yeah.
And it seems to me like he is maybe a character who does want attachment. He does want connection, which is a human thing to want, but feels like his reattachment and his kind of awakening this episode from the pirate stories is like, oh yeah. The truth is, you need to hold all the cards. And like maybe there's some fantasy in his head, like right now is of this episode of like, I'll get control of that mint and I can buy friends. I can buy loyalty and then I won't have to be alone and I'll be safe. And like how much in his head that is he not processing what I think was still true, what he told those kids of I'm like you, I'm alone.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%. Yeah. And there's so many different things, the attachment angle, but yeah, one of them being like, you think you have this life of freedom, but you're so alone. And attachments have responsibilities. They have fears. I think that's part of the. Now the choice of the Jedi is a little different, and we'll see. Yeah, you're right where Rey takes it and all the stuff. But I think it's sometimes misunderstood. I think Obi-Wan's connected to. He's attached to Dex. He's attached. It's not a bad thing. It's a responsibility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a commitment to a higher calling up to a point. But yes, then it can become alienating and cold and all those things and lots to discuss always with the Jedi philosophy. But I feel like Jod is investing in this lie of I don't need other people, which is again this wonderful tension of the pirate story of you need a crew. Even in Rennod's, where we don't see his face and his little mystery hologram there, he's talking about, I've got everything I need. I got the ship and the crew, and the crew betrays him, right? He doesn't betray the crew. It's the crew betrays him. So there's sort of that tension in the pirate story of we have all of our songs that we sing. We have our code of conduct. We have a community and a culture and a togetherness as pirates and all sorts of stuff that we communally value. And one of those things is, but we always turn on one another all the time. In fact, to the point where we've tried to, make it into a ritual.
Yeah, it's a thing.
Challenge one another,
There's rules. There's rules to it, sirs.
There's rules to betraying each other, and even those got broken in the story of what happened to Rennod, right?
Yeah.
Stabbed in the back, legitimately challenged by his first mate, and then stabbed in the back by his concubine. Mm-hmm. The attachment didn't go too well there.
That did not. Did not.
Yeah. All right. More than enough on the themes there for me. Any final thoughts from you?
No, I said it struck a chord in me just on that story level, and just without a doubt, it's a great performance from Jude Law. But it's what the character is about that is so intriguing to me. It's not quite up there with Han. Han's a lifetime for me, but in 5 episodes, he's a top 5 character for me. Just and how he's making me think and feel and question.
Mm-hmm. So good. So good.
Speaking of other characters and creatures and costumes, there's a lot to discuss in this episode. Just the full creatures on display everywhere. Immune in baths, in mud baths. We can start with that.
I thought that was so great. I thought the whole design of the spa was great. I think it felt tied to other Star Wars designs. It reminded me a lot of the First Light. I don't think there is any canonical connection to Crimson Dawn, and I wouldn't really want there to be. Yeah. But there's definitely some elements of that design that looked great. I thought Cathalops was a great design. I love that name that does kind of tie him. It's like, let's mash up Cthulhu and Cyclops and something big and monstrous. And it was really fun to see a hut and
eating.
I like eating. And I also like the way that the little guy, can't remember the species.
Trogloff.
Says not again, as though the hut continues to try to eat him and forgets he can't digest him or spits him out, or something of this has happened several times before.
It's a choose your own adventure. I choose to believe that he can't digest them, so it's a real horrible journey with one exit for the Trogloff.
The long way around, yes. I think I think that might be happening.
Oh, indeed. Cathalops is such a great character because you can easily, that tentacle comes down, the big booming voice, and just our training as story lovers of stories and adventures over the years. You're like, oh, we got ourselves a monster, and just the reveal of what he actually is was just, it was warm, it was fun, it was, dare I say, sweet. Loved everything about that character.
Yeah, and the idea that kids can find somebody you can trust. I thought the hotelier was great. I think I had a powerful emotional reaction to her. I think from Better Call Saul.
Better Call Saul, yeah. So Julianne Emery, she's great.
Yeah, she was fantastic. I think one of the other things that elevated this episode for me was the design was great, and everything looked cool. Nothing looked volumey to me.
Yeah. Even though it's there, I'm totally with you on that. Yeah.
Yep, and like the design of their room and that cool pattern that blocked out the windows so people couldn't see in. It's just kind of across the board cool design, and just enough of like, there's Rhodian, there's Ithorians, there's an Ithorian statue on At Attin. But then you get big pops like Cathalops, where it doesn't feel too small. It feels like we can have familiar aliens, and around the corner, every corner, there's a new one too.
It definitely made me think of Canto Bight, and I just started playing Star Wars Outlaws. I treated myself for the holiday week, and you start out, it's KVS's homeworld, Cantonica. So you're at Canto Bight. It has the same vibe. I'm thinking of Michael Kaplan and Ryan Johnson, that scene you and I talk about a lot, of Michael Kaplan being like, well, we just don't do this in Star Wars. We don't design this kind of stuff. And Ryan going, hey, give it a go.
Yep.
Give it a go. This planet was it's a spa, right? It's a luxury hotel. It's Vegas. It's the Bilderberg Group. It's a Bohemian Grove. It's whatever you want to look at when the powerful, rich and elite go relax and the things that happen. It's very real world, but you could just tell there's so much fun behind the design of all this stuff. There's you could tell there's a lot of designers rolling up their sleeves, taking it back to the early days of ILM. It's the same kind of magic present here, where it's very Star Warsy, but even just like a harp. I love the line of you can't play a shanty on a harp. That's very much going into Vegas, where you're not in Paris. You're at the Paris Hotel and Casino. You're Is that Neil Diamond's Coming to America on flute? Like, what is going on here? It's so well done, but I love the design, even down to Pocket. So this bounty hunter Pocket, Kelly MacDonald. I'm making the jokes, but Train Spotting is kind of where she first came to scene. You're right. Boardwalk Empire show not talked about as much in the great pantheon of HBO shows. It should be. Love that show. She's so wonderful in that, and yes, brave and all the wonderful things she's done. But I love the design because it was so almost over the top. And a wonderful Star Wars bounty hunter way. We have a new bounty hunter into the StarWars.com databank. Great name, Pocket. But she just was allowed to be herself, the accent coming through. And I know Kerry Condon fans are like, let Kerry Condon's accent come through, Irish. But you got the Scottish brogue here. I just love the design of it. Loved how it was played. And it was, and here she is, this bounty hunter that we're playing the subtext, but again, on the surface, oh yeah, I'm just here to I've got a spa, and oh yeah, I've got a day spa tomorrow, and this and that. But the subtext, what's underneath it, it's such a wonderfully used character for this episode. Love Pocket.
Yeah. I thought the whole episode looked great and felt great, and the design work really paid off, and all of the casting paid off. So great across the board.
Across the board, ship design was great too. Love the pirate ships coming in there too.
Look at the helmets. I wanted to say the helmets.
Yeah.
The security guard helmets. I love it in all this new stuff that's just like. That's generally what security guard helmets like. Somehow that's like somewhere in the galaxy. Like this is the best way to protect security guards' brains. So cloud car pilots generally have this shape of helmet. The Canto Bight police generally have this kind of shape of helmet. The Tanta V4 rebel soldiers have this kind of.
You're making me think of my security days. There's that horrible trend of every security officer's got to be in a big wide brimmed sheriff hat. And I'd fight against it. And they'd be like, well, it's a force multiplier because you can see one guard across the mall and you can see the head and you recognize it's a force multiplier. I'm like, you're getting us made fun of. You're getting us made fun of. Get the hats off. Hated those hats.
Never help you.
Yeah. No. And they fall off when you run and everything. Looking at Canon Connections, that's part of it, what you're just talking about, the design. Larger Star Wars story stuff. Running through some little ones, we got the banking clan, Scipio, the detail of even that. The Hutts, the Trogloff species from Last Jedi, played the same way too, just that quiet, like place your bets. Love that. I love the mention Pocket. Going back to Pocket, doesn't have to take any of those low rent guild jobs. There's the big one of the Qui-Gon thing I want to talk about. But any other little ones that jump to your mind, Joseph, that we haven't talked about?
Oh, yeah, I loved the in that pretty much like kind of in that pocket scene in that general area, there's lots of those little beats of like that connected Star Wars from different eras and just made it all feel one and the same. Where she said something about the pucks, which was new to us when Mandalorian started 5-ish years ago now, and the Sleemo, right, which was people of our generation, one of them endless eye rolls at the prequels of like that line of Sleemo, which I believe was introduced in Attack of the Clones, was great to hear.
Yeah, I think
Don't trust this Sleemo. Wizard,
Wizard.
Clearly they're getting some amount of culture from the rest of the galaxy because they got the word wizard. So lots of just little tying in. The banking clan was huge for me because it's probably been in some of the Rise of the Resistance the books. That the banking clan has survived everything. Obviously, they are under strict Imperial control. I'm sure the New Republic was not like, we're not going to control all the banks. The government and the banks are going to have a little bit of, interdependency, but independence. But it knowing the history of the banking clan in Star Wars, that's the thing that just that detail just was like, there's not great things going on here.
Yeah, it made me wonder that with their, it makes sense that they're in existence, but it's that the fact that it's the same group, like what are we doing? Like you might, and I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole because I didn't in this episode, but it made me think of like, oh man, Mothma and Leia, everyone's got to deal with them too. Like they're still around.
Yeah, I mean, who's coming to this economic conference, right?
Amazing. All right, your focus determines reality. We get this great reveal of a little bit more of Jod's story, and I really agree with you. I think a decision has been made by the show. He's not faking it. He is a Force user. They've been, I think, pretty honest with that from the beginning, but it's fair to question, especially having just rewatched the Kenobi series. Great stuff there with Kumail. So we're here, here's where we're at, and I don't know. I'll start here, Joseph. I don't think we're ever going to have him say, and I learned from at the feet of Jedi Qui-Gon Jinn, or I don't know if we'll ever get the story, because his story changes every week, but this is a truth. This is a thematic truth. So overall, just pitching back to you of your thoughts of this line popping up. What did it do to you? What did it make you think, and where do you go?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there was at one point somebody else yelled Jodwick Zank.
Really?
One of the security guards. Yeah, yeah. I didn't pick it up for the subtitles.
Yes,
when they were yelling his different code names at him, like Mad Captain Silvio, Jodwick Zank, and that was interesting to me. Before I heard that, I was like, is Jod Nanawood? And I did keep saying Jod Nanawood, but you're right. The way he says it in the first episode is totally a Paul McCartney delivery of that name, Jod Nanawood.
Jod Nanawood.
But it made me wonder, like, is that the name of his master? Or is that a name of a Jedi he found particularly sanctimonious and full of criff? That's the name that he chose to use on these kids. Yeah. He listened to them, right? And he heard Wim talking about Jedi, and he's like, this is the best way to manipulate them. Right. Is to come at them as, like, I'm a hero. And he lays it on real thick, right? And part of the reason for me to go down that rabbit hole is I think all the things he was saying when he first helped them escape about, like, I just used my patience and the Force provided, is like he's barely holding back his disdain for the BS. Yes. And even down to the funny joke of, like, that's not a Jedi thing. That's not a Jedi tenet of we never leave one behind. We actually, they're about letting go. So they might leave one behind, actually. That'd be one of the things we train for, the necessity of that. If it's better for if it's going to save 100 other people, they absolutely leave one behind. So his joke about that's not a Jedi thing, it feels to me that he chooses to go around and talk to Wim partially because it's his own agenda of, I need to keep them up and happy and functioning. But there's also an element of, like, but I do like the kid, and I see this spark in him, and I see something of myself in him. So I feel like everything else he's shown about his relationship to the Jedi and their philosophy is theater and barely concealed disdain. Whereas this quote from Qui-Gon is like, that one ain't BS. Yes, right. That one is valuable. Yes. And I used it, and I realized, hey, that, seminar that Qui-Gon had of your focus determines your reality, he was right. Yeah. And my focus is, all this Jedi stuff is BS. They're naive. That's not the real world. I don't want this. Or whatever his motivation was to drop out or get kicked out, whatever it was, it felt like the Jedi taught me about attachments, and the Jedi taught me this quote, and they're valuable, and even the Jedi don't understand how they're valuable because the Jedi had the wrong spin on them. It felt sincere, but it also felt like somebody who had a true, legitimate relationship with these teachings. Yes, and I think, too, on full rewatch, once all these episodes are out there, I think watching Jod even closer, just his lines are going to already have new context, right? But I think it's going to be fun to watch that again and again and again. But I think you're right, because these great moments of truth. I'm alone, I think, is the truth. Some of the advice. But I think, this moment rings so true. I do think he sees a little of himself in Wim. So there might be, if he was speaking more directly, he might be like, hey, don't join the Jedi Order, man. Like, don't do that. Yeah. But my final point, like, even, I don't want to take it spinning out completely into my life, but like why I'm connecting with this character so much. There's, I'm an ex-evangelical, and I've been wrestling with that more than ever this year. It doesn't mean I've thrown out everything I've learned or the people I learned from, or that, like, it still comes through. It came through even for me this month of just like, I think that is good, but the trappings around it maybe not, or were destructive for me or destructive for others. I think it's very realistic, a very interesting look at the Jedi Order. I still think Jod's there in some way to an adult reconnecting with magic, and seeing himself in Wim kind of plays it out. But in terms of just the Jedi of it all, like, I don't know if we'll ever get more details. I don't know if we'll get the truth from him, but it's asking important questions about who you are, what you're there, and why you can't always separate it. And maybe you should. Yeah. Sometimes you should, but sometimes you can't. And he's speaking the truth of something that's lived. Yeah, no, I really, really agree with that. And this show does not seem, it has an elegant relationship with lore and canon. Yes. And maybe we'll hear the name Qui-Gon. It's also, many other Jedi could have had that wisdom. That could be Youngling lesson number 2, your focus determines your reality. Like, we associate it with Qui-Gon, whatever. I don't maybe we'll get a flashback and my master was Kit Fisto or whatever.
Liam Neeson shows up in the final episode. It's like, I've always been here for you, John.
Yes, if you just wanted to see me, you just no. But I do think my prediction is that Jod and Wim will have another heart-to-heart, and Jod will tell him,
"Yeah,
I was set on this path," and maybe even some criticism of my parents, whoever the hell they were, chose this for me as an infant, and I was on this path, and it was not a path for me, and I walked away. And kid, you can do the same. Yeah. This show started with everybody laughing at you because what do you want to be? What are you testing for? What do you hope you succeed at the test in? Because then you're locked into being that as much as you're locked into being a Jedi. Mm-hmm. And Wim had a kind of wispy, bullshitty answer that I believe Neil made fun of him for. Like, you basically said he wanted to be an assistant to a Jedi. I can't remember the exact line, but it was totally about exactly this. The quote the gift that Jod gives to Wim this episode: make your life the one you want to live. Mm-hmm. And I think that there's a good possibility that there's another heart-to-heart after Jod has let them down, and after Wim has made some heroic choices, and after they've discovered the truth of At Attin and broken it apart a bit, and having Jod go, like, this is what happened to me. I was locked into a life that I was told to live a specific way, and I made a different choice, and I made a choice of imagination, and maybe it worked for me, maybe it didn't, but you can do that too, Wim. You can choose who you want to be. You don't need to be locked in, and I think that might bring in a little bit more of Jod's backstory, but also bring in these big themes of what the show is dealing with the conformity of the suburbs, that safety and connection and community and rules are all great things, but what happens when you don't question the why of them? When you don't question the why of them, they become a prison, which I won't speak for your upbringing, but I think is the criticism of some structures that have great community, great morals, great guidance, but the members of that community are not invited and sometimes actively stopped from asking questions and making different choices outside of the system, which is, I feel like, what this show is the positive view of adulthood that this show is going to come to. If you can ask why, and you can choose something different.
Yeah. And then what are you going to do with that choice is also a place, as we've been talking about the themes of even just the use of pirates overall. We were digging into some just the basic book level interpretations of pirates they are kind of anti-establishment, but is that are they heroes? Maybe not throughout history and not used as that, but that's kind of part of the theme. And the Peter Pan of it all is at play here. But well said on that. And just truth of why is not inherently dangerous. It's not destructive at its base level. It can be very positive and freeing. So great stuff. All at play in this wonderful little kids show.
Yeah.
We got looking at some of the big questions. This is maybe I'll rework the notes down the line of kind of all into one. Predictions for future, questions, theories. We talked about John and Norwood, Captain Silva, Dash Zentin, John. What was it? Jodwick?
Jodwick. I'm scrolling down. Jodwick Zank.
That's amazing.
I do just love that all of his names are. When they first announced Jod and Norwood, we discussed, like, why does he have a kind of the kind of Star Wars name that used to get made fun of from Expanded Universe, and I love that it turns out because he's kind of poking fun at different archetypes.
It totally is. So I think we answered kind of the big question theories about the Qui-Gon of it all. I put the Qui-Gon of it all meaning the Jedi connection. I really don't think we'll get the name mentioned, maybe the main name mentioned, but it's not the point of it, as we're saying here. Looking at the supervisor, more clues. I don't believe, and I've seen this going around, and I always love a good theory. You just got to connect to the why on it. But Rennod, and some people pointed out last week, as it's been, it's Richard Donner. It's Donner backwards. Got it. Director of the Goonies. And many, 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 many other things. Is the supervisor Rennod his first mate or someone else? Are they connected? in your brain yet, or is someone completely different? Is King No Head, is Rennod with no face on this hologram connecting for you?
It feels like we're being invited to ask that question, but I almost feel like it's two different mysteries. Is yes. What it feels like to me. Of like this episode was over the top in not King No Head, but Pirate No Face, right?
Yes.
Even down to the kids asking, "Why isn't it clear enough for him to see
What's
the face?"
Wrong? Yeah.
Is Rennod Jod's great grand something. The fact that Rennod is not just like we saw the pirate face does make me feel like there's a mystery to who is Rennod, and the possibilities of that feel to me like we saw in this episode that Jod worships him in this sort of romantic storybook way, and I imagine that there could be a truth with Rennod that makes him sad in real life and robs some of that youthful joy of Jod from Jod's perspective. Yeah. So who is Rennod really feels like that might connect to Jod's journey. The supervisor, I still feel like that could be a system. Like, so if the jewels of the Old Republic were, we set up these communities that are really nice to live on because the price is you're going to be locked away from the world because you're the place that prints money. It has the forgery, not forgeries, but the forges. Yeah. And you make the Old Republic money, so we hide you away so nobody bothers you, and we set you up with this cozy, conformed life. The others all fall. The others are all raided over the years. This one goes on long after the Old Republic's gone. That, to me, speaks still narratively of a system where the why disappeared a long time ago and nobody knows. So, people have made the Wizard of Oz connection.
Right.
It's an old science fiction trope of the fear of mechanization, of what if the human decision falls out of mechanization. That was the anxiety in the 30s, 40s, 50s. And right now we are dealing with a fresh, massive wave of that, of AI, of like even things that in theory to humans are fun, we want to hand to AI. Like the fantasy of handing our lives to machines might be like, used to be like, everything will be a Roomba and a dishwasher, and we'll have time to write poetry and spend time on the beach. And now we're dealing with this level of mechanization of, what if it can write poetry for you? Like, that's the beauty. That's the what if machines can be a human for you? What if you don't have to carry around a soul and a machine can do it for you? We're at an entirely different level that sci-fi trope was built from. So if this show, which got started in development before this AI boom, ends up being a commentary on, for generations and generations, these people have subjugated themselves to a system that no longer has a purpose, and none of them have asked why. I have a hard time getting away from that as a satisfying thematic answer to the mystery.
Yeah, no, I could follow it out pretty easily. Of if the supervisor is literally no one, or King No Head is no one, and with the Rennod of it all, backtrack a little bit. We had the skeletons that were seen in the cabin, and the knife and the heart of wand. Whether or not that is Rennod or anything, and he's dressed in his clothing or whatever, maybe I like that. That could be enough for me. But yeah, the supervisor, I think you're right. There's enough breadcrumbs to make me think they're connected, which makes me immediately not trust it. My Fern instincts are up on it. But I love the idea of the supervisor, whether it's a pit droid like we saw in that Clone Wars episode, the 3 pit droids running things, or it's a frail old man. It would all kind of work. It is kind of a fear of not even fear, but fear keeping you in line, and the system can easily be toppled if you just ask a question or two. I like that idea, and I think it could play out that way.
Yeah, if the adults have the strength and the reason to push back against the system, which we're starting to see.
Right?
Yeah. So those things that it makes sense to me as two separate tracks of the supervisor mystery is what the kids in At Attin need, and the Rennod mystery is what Jod needs.
Yeah.
But I do feel like the show. I also wouldn't be surprised if it was like, Yeah, no, Rennod was the supervisor, because the show also is, I think, really inviting us to ask that, and there's a reason that a lot of fans are asking that.
Yeah,
those questions.
And it would all kind of track. I think that the themes are still driving the decisions there too. Just fascinating. It's been fun, part of it. Any other big questions, theories, predictions for next week from you, sir? Then we'll close with some questions and a final one.
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of my only grumble with the show, this episode I thought was fantastic, but it still does feel like something that got pitched as a movie and expanded to a television show. And this particular episode knocked it out of the park of being its own episode. But structurally, I think we're pretty much at the end of the traditional Act 2 of the characters have had growth. They've learned the things that they need, but right now all is lost. And so I kind of am feeling like maybe next episode is really going to be the kids struggling with the devastation and beginning to use their skills to head them into Act 3, where they will come into their own. Feel like their way off the planet is their new storytelling friend, or their story-liking friend, Catholops. Yeah.
Imagine what ship he's in. Oh, man.
So big.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. The overall, look, I'm trying to even be, we always struggle with the terms, not more honest in my appraisal of episodes. If I like something, I say I like it, and I don't question why. Sometimes I love this episode. It was near perfection for me. I do know what you're feeling with the overall, just as we talked a lot in the past of the streaming concept and the streaming formulas of the episodes can sometimes be a challenge, but I think it worked for me so much in this episode. And every line, there was not a wasted line of dialogue in this episode. It was beautiful. So
Nope.
No questions.
One other thing I jotted down is Jod had the comment when they landed on at Akron, Ohio last week. A lot like my home planet, actually. Which, if he is a Jedi, did he go and he left? Did he go back to his home planet? Was he a Jedi like Anakin, who was taken a little bit older? That'd be really interesting to me.
That's a good point.
Yeah. No other questions, no other concerns or things I didn't like. I think biggest prediction is that make your life the one you want to live line, I think is load bearing for the end of the show.
I agree with that. If we could have one toy based on these episodes or this episode, what would it be? There's a lot of options. Sometimes we just go figures, we go big play sets, we go a lot of places with this. Where do you go with this?
I mean, I can come up with something clever or funny, but the truth is like, I want a Jod action figure. The current one's got a brown shirt. Do I wait for
gotta wait?
Bad Jod with blue shirt and lightsaber. That was that's what I want. That's what I want to hit order on right now. Like bad decision Jod with blue shirt and lightsaber. That's what I want.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to go. I'd love a Catholops bath time floaty. I don't know. You just I don't take a bath, but you could just have one sitting in there. You could have a hut Black Series with a Trogloff that can just eat and slide out like a baby toy. Could be. I want, because I just did this to, I don't know, get myself in the holiday spirit. I was at Trader Joe's and I got those little chocolate coins, that we have as a kid, and I haven't had them in years. And it's hard to open at the foil, but once you do, it's a tasty chocolate treat. I would love Old Republic chocolates, just Old Republic credit chocolates, I should say.
This is the collectible I need these days, where I can indulge in buying something Star Wars and then eat it. So I'm all on board. Old Republic chocolates.
That's what we got. Well, that is it. That is our look at episode 5. A long look at a great episode that's been celebrated pretty much across the board. You have a lot to learn about pirates. It was certainly all in the title. No final thoughts for me other than I loved it. I cannot wait for next week. This has been a fun series, and one of the things that's been fun is just a lot of folks in my life who don't watch Star Wars as much as they used to, or just always been general fans. There's been a lot of texts of, hey, this show is great. That is not to do with anything of the previous shows. I think sometimes it's just, if you're a general audience, you might not follow another show. You might not watch it, or you just might get to it when you get to it. This show, maybe because of the time it is, maybe it's the good word of mouth. I don't know. I'm just getting a lot of that, and it's been fun as a Star Wars fan to enjoy that week to week.
No. I agree. I think I can't wait to watch it with my wife, and I think it's one that pays off on every level. All the depth of themes is great, but just the surface level comedy action adventure, it's one that's going to be fun to rewatch a million times and wait for that moment where where Neil sniffs Jod to see if he's trustworthy.
I missed that. I got to go back and watch that. That's fantastic.
It's so because your focus wants to be on Jod's face, because like, how is he going to handle the fact that Cathal's just said he isn't trustworthy, and Neil's just like, I don't know. So yeah, it's going to have great rewarding surface moments and depth moments. So that's it for me.
There you go. So we're out of here. You can find us on social media at ForceCenter Pod, especially Blue Sky. Having a lot of fun there. Facebook page is ForceCenter Podcast. We're on Instagram, on YouTube. If you're here on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. I wasn't able to do a vertical live this Monday because life. But we'll look for those pop-up vertical lives from all three of us. Also, Friday, we forgot to say, we got a live stream. If you're watching us on Thursday, if you're watching us in an actual, time period that the show's aired, Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific, our live stream looking ahead to 2025 in Star Wars. Going to be a lot of fun here on the YouTube channel. And we'll release it audio after. Podcast available in a lot of spots. Just search and find us. Merch available at tpublic.com/user/ForceCenter or Fourth Wall, link down below in the YouTube description. You can support us directly. We hit our goal. We're over 420 at patreon.com/ForceCenter. Follow me at Ken Napzok or KenNapzok.com. Hey, if you're local, January 10th, big show headlining Flappers Yoo-Hoo Room on Friday night, January 10th, 7:30 p.m. On the bill as well, Joseph Scrimshaw. So please come on out. Ticket information on my website, KenNapzok.com. Follow Jennifer at all the spots you can follow her at. But Joseph, where can they find and follow you?
Yeah, you can find me on all the social media, Blue Sky in particular. I'm enjoying myself. My handle everywhere is Joseph Scrimshaw, and you can check out my website, josephscrimshaw.com, for info on all the film stuff I'm doing. In particular, if you want to make a tax-deductible donation here at the end of the year to the horror film I'm currently working on called Dead Media, we're going into the post-production phase, which has its own costs, and then into marketing. So if you'd like to help us out, you can still do that. That's on my website, josephscrimshaw.com. And I can't wait for Ken's show. I'm putting together my material, and maybe it'll be 12 minutes of Neil impressions. We'll see.
Works for me. Works for me. That's it for this week. We'll see you next time. For all the pirates and heroes in the world, hey, listen to those stories. We'll see you next time here on ForceCenter.